Hi, this is Guy Wallace. I started in learning and development way back in 1979, and I semi-retired in 2023. But my current mission as a semi-retired L&D professional is to help enterprise learning and development organizations become more performance-based. Welcome to my podcast. This episode is about personalized learning in an enterprise learning context. Personalized enterprise learning should plan a sequence of learning via performance-based instruction, timed to meet the needs of the job, and reflect the authentic job tasks and outputs that are required back on the job, while avoiding what the learner already knows and doesn't need to know. Offering personalized learning in an enterprise learning context requires knowing what the individual's job assignments are for outputs and tasks, and what they already know and can do. If you don't know where your target audiences are starting from, knowledge and skill-wise, and what variances exist across all of your intended audiences, your instructional architecture won't be modularized, won't offer the performance-based learning in configurations that fit them and their needs. It will either leave out the foundational content that they truly need, or it will force them through content that they already know or don't need to know because it's not their job. Content configuration, or modularization as I've been calling it since 1982, is critical to the personalization of learning after it's been performanceized. First, performanceize, then personalize. An instructional architecture should offer modular instruction that's been chunked logically to mirror, as best as possible, how job assignments are handed out and what the target audience already might know. Careful planning, the down-selecting and sequencing of targeted learning, from a development path of self-paced, coached, and group-paced instruction, with the possibility of testing out for all performance-based instruction that addresses truly high-stakes performance with high risks or high rewards, is critical to ensuring both transfer and impact. From my 1999 book, Lean ISD, target audience data provides clarity regarding the target audiences. What group constitutes the primary target audiences for the T&D? What group is secondary? Is there a tertiary audience? The analyst and the project team need to understand such things as who the customers of the prospective learning are. Where are they? Where have they come from, and where might they go? Their needs, constraints, and environmental factors that will affect the learning is critical to understand as you design a configuration of performance-based instructional content. As any marketer or product manager will know, you gotta know your customer. I've been doing L&D paths since the early 1980s. My first was as an employee at Motorola, when I first heard about curriculum architectures from Ray Svensson, who was at Motorola's Training and Education Center in the summer of 1981 doing consulting work on strategic planning for our brand new function. I heard it, and then I did one. A performance-based curriculum architecture for manufacturing supervisors at the 30-some manufacturing sites across 5 business sectors across all of North America. I had about 10 flip chart pages taped together with 5 swim lanes showing the paths of learning via formal instruction that were shared or unique to either the business sector or the facility of the target audience. The paths addressed what later became known as onboarding and then segued into ongoing development. Learning paths, as they became more widely known 20 years later, are usually not lockstep, although a few that I've done have been. I've done 76 curriculum architecture or instructional architecture projects as an external consultant since 1982, and I've produced multiple paths in maybe a quarter of each of those projects. Those paths that were not lockstep were personalized in the planning effort, where modular events were down-selected from the overall path, which is a marketing poster, if you will, to select what was needed, and then they were possibly resequenced as needed, and then completion was scheduled to meet the needs of the job. Down select? Yeah, think cherry picking, appropriate cherry picking. The down select accounted for the job assignments, as jobs with the same job title were rarely responsible for the same outputs and tasks. Just because people have the same job title doesn't mean that their job assignments will be exactly the same. The performance competence development path would also provide for spaced reinforcements if the job itself wasn't going to reinforce key task performance all by itself. When you're doing some set of tasks every day, all day long, you won't need spaced learning. But if it's something that's going to be done randomly or maybe once a year, you probably will need spaced learning. When you had to do cold storage training, as we called it back in the day, just in case, it might be needed to do spaced learning. When the learning in the workflow was problematic, you need to do spaced learning. Otherwise, our design rule was to avoid cold storage training, which is subject to much forgetting over the long term. The master performers who sat on both the analysis team and then the design team made all of these decisions, as well as suggest the sequence of events and their titles as they approve them going on to the path. Truth in titling is an important concept in my opinion, which is the best approach to convey to the target audiences what will be covered. The learning and development path, or the performance competence development path, or the learning blueprint, is augmented by a planning guide or tool which is used to down-select what is needed by the individual given their job assignments, which again might vary from other people's job assignments, regardless of their job title, and what their incoming knowledge and skills are given their prior education and experiences. An individual planning guide facilitates the down-select and the sequencing and timing. In my methods, in my curriculum architecture design portion of my PAC processes for performance-based learning and development, a development map or a learning path is built using analysis data about the performance competence requirements for tasks and their outputs, and then the systematically derived enabling knowledge and skills. Master performers are facilitated to define the performance, and then they systematically derive the knowledge and skills. They are facilitated again to map the path, a modular path of modular events, of modular lessons, and modular instructional activities, 3 levels, if you will, of design. Then these are put into a suggested sequence with a truth in titling approach to each of the events on the path. This is to help guide the planning efforts. Learning and development paths are not just for new hires, but they are front-end loaded, if you will, for people new to the job, the new hires. That's when people need the most help and guidance, when they're new. Later, as they get more experience, they need less and less and are able to navigate and learn more on their own. I like to say most 10 before most 20 before most 70. Yes, I flipped that reference model from 70-20-10 to 10-20-70. The first part of every T&D path I've done since 1982 addresses what later became known as onboarding and included the typical HR stuff, plus welcome to your job, and then welcome to the enterprise, then welcome to the function, then welcome to the department, and then welcome to the team, and then circling back for more welcome to your job, part 2, going much deeper than part 1, where we get into the specifics of your job assignment and what you'll need to learn. Then we get into the learning. The second part of every path I've done since 1982, after the onboarding content, is all about what we call the immediate survival skills. Those are the skills that you should have ideally before taking the wheel of the new job assignment, so to speak. Those are determined by the design team, a subset of the entire analysis team, composed of master performers and other subject matter experts hand-picked by the project steering team for their credibility, so that there will be less arguments later about what's covered and where it appears on the path. The third part of every path I've done since 1982 is all about the other knowledge and skills that weren't needed immediately. Many times, those potential modular events on the path are never built or bought. They are left to what I've been calling unstructured OJT, unstructured on-the-job training, which later became known as informal learning. They'll learn it by hook or by crook, I'd tell the project steering team on behalf of the design team in our gate review meeting about those unstructured OJT events on their path. The project steering team would be looking at the first iteration of the performance competence development path, or the learning path, that painted the visual picture of what is needed and what currently existed and what the current state gaps were, so that they could then prioritize for development and acquisition high, medium, low, or zero for the follow-on post-architectural design efforts to develop or acquire the learning content. Those events on the path not resourced soon or ever if voted zero would be unstructured OJT, the 20 and the 70 if you will, until they could or might be upgraded to structured on-the-job coaching, the structured 20 if you will, or group-paced or self-paced, the 10, the formal instruction that should precede the less formal instruction. As the learning path's gaps got addressed over time, the path would need to be updated. And if I had my way, I'd boldly tell my project steering teams, I'd put the learning paths, the marketing poster if you will, up on the walls wherever the target audience congregated, near the coffee pots and the snacks, or on real walls in the halls, or on virtual walls for marketing what L&D existed and what didn't, and where to get more information. You can read more about curriculum or instructional architecture in several of my books. Check the show notes for more. Thank you.